So this is what we have right now. And everything is just sort of vertical. Now what I've done is I've added a few more links down here. They don't actually go anywhere. They're just the same link that I already had, things I like, just multiplied a couple different times as if I had more pages. I wanted to do that because I want it to look a little bit more like a menu, and I could add more stuff in there later, but I just want to kind of show you what else we can do with this. Right now, everything on our page is loading from top to bottom, and that is how HTML works. It loads one line at a time, rendering each thing. Because it's doing that, it loads the first thing at the top of the page, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. There's different ways that we can do this. We could rearrange these, right? So that way this loads up higher or something like that. But what we can also do is using CSS, we can actually tell the browser to put things in different places, even if it loads it later. So we earlier played a little bit with this image tag. There it is, right here. And we gave it an ID. Now using the ID, we were able to specify that we wanted something to happen with this specific image. We can do similar things with chunks of code too. So this menu that I created here, I could put this in like a section and then do things with that section. So that's actually what I'm going to do. So open yours up and get ready to follow along. I'll show you a little bit and then you can pause it and try it out too. So I'm going to literally put this into a section. That's actually what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it a section. And then I'm going to close the section down here. So go ahead and do the same with yours, and add a few more links in here. Even if you're just copying and pasting the same link multiple times, go ahead and add a few just so you have a little bit more stuff to work with. So I'll go ahead and pause it, and then once you're done, then you can resume. Alright, so the next thing is how to actually identify this section, because we might want to use more sections, right? We might want to make this a section, and maybe this is a section, and maybe we want to have some sections on this other page I made, right? So we're going to identify this section as a specific area. So I'm going to give it an ID attribute, and I'm going to call it maybe my menu. Now once I've done that, now I can actually start doing things to it in my CSS, right? So if I run it right now, there's no change, right? I've identified it, I've put it in a section, but I haven't done anything with it. So if we go over to Style CSS, using the hashtag, the #, just like we did with the me image, I can add in my menu. It's important that you spell it properly. Open my curly braces. Let's create a little bit of room, and now let's do a few things with this. So what do I want to do with this? The first thing I think I want to do is I think I want to make it a little bit thinner, right? Like this is really wide for how much stuff is here. I'm kind of thinking that it would be cool if I put it up here. Okay, so let's make it a little less wide. Maybe width equals, I'm not sure how many pixels that is. Okay, so if this is 400, right, because we told this to be 400, then maybe half of that, I think that looks decent. I think about half of that looks decent for the size of this. Maybe 200 px, and I can run it and see how it looks. I think that's pretty much exactly what I wanted. It's just about the right width for my text. Okay, so that's good. Now, how about moving it up here? So the next thing that I need to do is I need to change how its position works. So right now, its position is relative to everything else, right? These things load, and then based on where these things load, it just loads on the bottom. So instead, I need to change its position to absolute, which will make it go in a specific spot and stay there. It's not relative anymore. Now, it's not going to work at first because we're not really telling it where to go. We're just telling it to change the style, so we won't see a big difference yet. But there is an important thing that I'd like to show you. If I hit run, notice this bar, this horizontal rule, is now going through the menu, right? This section is no longer taking up space. So this horizontal rule and this horizontal rule are separated by those line breaks, but not by this anymore, because this is no longer changing or storing or reserving space based on its size. So it's not relative, it's absolute, right? And so it doesn't take up space in relation to other things. Now it's still loading down here because it loaded everything else first. So how do we change its position? We can do top, and this is going to tell it how far away to be from the top of the page. So if I do 20 px. We can tell it to run. Now it's way up here with a little gap there, right? And maybe I don't want it to be on the side here just like that. So I can say left, and let's give it a little bit of room, maybe 20 px again. And I can run it. I've got a little gap there. Although the issue is, because this has no background, now the menu has a background, but the rest of it doesn't, right? This is hard to read, so maybe I want to give it a background color too. So I can do background color, and then, you know, I'm not going to bother finding a color code right now. I'm just going to choose Azure. I'm just going to let it choose a named color, and hit run. And there we go, right? Like, that's decent. Now, of course, all of this is loading right underneath it, and that's a little weird too, so maybe I don't want that. So go ahead and pause this and do what I just did, and then when you're done, resume it, and then we'll take care of this. Okay, so going back to the index page, I've got my About Me. Here it is, my About Me. Not this one, this is the title for way up here. This About Me is that, right? The Who Am I and my text down here is fine, but this section here, I don't like the overlap. So what can we do about that? Just like we did with the menu, we can drop this in another section. So we'll start the section there, and then we'll close it here. We need to give it an ID. So maybe this is, I don't know, top of page. Then I can go into my CSS, and I can identify that section, right, using the hashtag or the pound symbol, top of page, right? And really my only issue with it is that it's got this overlap here, right? So I need to move it over by not just 200 pixels, this is 200 wide, right? But it's also got the 20 there. So I need to move it over at least 200 to 20 pixels wide. But I think maybe having this gap be the same might look nice. So what if I do left 240 pixels? Will that work? Let's give it a shot. No, that didn't quite work. So what do I need to do for that? Maybe I need to change the width, because right now, position. Position. Absolute. Right, so if we do that, will that work? There we go, right? So it's pushed it all the way over there. Now, unfortunately, that also means that all the text underneath is no longer where I want it to be, so I need to move that a little bit also. So let's go back into my index, and let's put all of this into a section as well. Section. Right, down to here, right, because this is where that ends. So we can close this section, and this can be ID equals bottom of page, since that matches sort of my naming convention there. And then, once again, let's identify it. So, bottom of page, right? And position, we need to do another position absolute, right? So that way we can define where we want to place it. And now here the issue isn't really this, this left aspect, it's from the top. So we need to choose top and then figure out how many pixels. So if this is 400, this looks maybe like 300, but I've got a little bit more space up there. So let's try 500 px and see if I like how that looks. It's a little too much, maybe 400. There we go. I think that looks decent. I think I do want a little bit of a break on the left side too to kind of match that, right? Because this little indentation here and then not there. Maybe 20 px. There we go. I think that looks okay, right? And that's how you play with the positioning. Now notice this horizontal rule is now way up here because all of these have absolute positions and they are no longer relative to everything else on the page, which makes this bounce way up there. So I might want to go back into my index.html and just delete that horizontal rule. So go ahead and pause and try out what I did, right, with yours to position where you want different things, and then go ahead and resume it when you're done. So I'm just going to hop back over here and find that horizontal rule, right, which was after all of my sections, so it's right here. There it is. And I can run it. And there we go, right? So now that's gone, right? So that's essentially kind of getting started with positioning things with CSS, and that gives you a whole lot more power. Now this is just touching the surface. There's so much more you can do with this, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of taste of it and enough understanding to try things out and see what you think.